You got to operate in truth, right? Operate in truth. Tell the truth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gator Truth Florida Football Podcast. I'm Daniel, and on this episode, we're going to preview the Gators' home opener against the McNeese State Cowboys. And to be honest, getting here, it's the fourth time in 7 seasons that the Gators are having their home opener in the second game of the season. And just to put that in perspective, if you go back from 1990 up through, I believe, 2016 was the last time in the streak. So 27 straight openers were at home. And then, of course, we had in 2017, we go to Dallas and face Michigan. 2019, Miami. 2020, we start off on the road against Ole Miss. And then now 2023, we start off on the road against Utah. So it is a still kind of unique situation, but not as unique as it used to be. With that said, McNeese State should be an overmatched opponent. This should give us a chance to work through some of the issues that we had plaguing us in the Utah game. Last week, McNeese State did lose to Tarleton State, which honestly I'd not heard of the school before. They're based out in Texas, but anyways, they beat McNeese State 52-34. McNeese did have a lead in the second half of that game, but ultimately made some mistakes, allowed some big plays, and got left in the dust. Well, enough about that game and our previous game. Let's go ahead and look at some of the things for our game against McNeese State. So, the first thing I'd like to see against McNeese State is I want to see us solving our procedural issues just as a whole: offense, defense, special teams. And what I mean by that is Billy Napier this week, he kind of talked about sometimes he had play calls coming in late. And of course, that leads to guys getting lined up late and confusion. And so that's one thing on the offense we'd like to see. And another thing procedurally is, of course, 8 guys on a field goal, block unit or field goal safe unit, whatever it was. There are only 8 guys on the field. Of course, 2 number 3s on that punt return, which gave Utah a first down, which eventually led to 7 points. Things like that are things that I do want to see solved as a whole. And it's really one of the few things we can kind of take from this game. Of course, there's a lot different feeling in games and a lot different pressure and thought process when you're facing a Utah, Tennessee, and FSU, Georgia, and when you're facing an overmatched opponent against McNeese State. You have more confidence and just lets it flow better. So we can get some answers, but not necessarily everything. But as long as we don't see some of those weird things like not enough men on the field or 2 jerseys, that's kind of a positive, I guess, that we can see and actually appreciate. For the offense, what I do want to see is I want to see us work on the run game. One thing about that is, of course, our running game last week was not very good. Didn't run too well, and we abandoned it. I know there are some people saying we should have done more of it. I'm not sure if we should when we were having 8, 9 guys in the box. Why would we still want to be running 6 offensive linemen against 8, 9 defenders? I'm not sure. Now, there are other things that we could have done that I hope to see in the future to counteract that, whether it's runs to the outside to kind of minimize half the box because now they're on the far side of the field, whether it's other things that we can do. I would love to see it. I'd also love to see guys like Eugene Wilson getting the ball more. He showed he could be dynamic when he touched the ball last week. 1 carry for 9 yards. 2 receptions for 24 yards, including one where he caught the ball, faked a guy out, and just jetted upfield. And just finding ways to get him the ball as well as getting Pearsall the ball and really trying to work out these receivers and getting some of our other talented freshmen, such as Andy Jean and Aiden Mizell, opportunities to get the ball as well. I would like to see us work on the downfield passing game because, well, honestly, we didn't do too much throwing downfield. A buddy of mine at Gator Chatter, SEC 14 Gator, he looked it up, actually rewatched the game to look at this stat, which I thought was just crazy. I believe he said within 4 yards of the line of scrimmage were 30 of our 44 pass attempts. So almost 75% of our passes against Utah were 4 yards or less. I know I said of our completions that gain, or not just gain yards, but gain 4 yards or less or were loss, that we had 10 of those. Apparently, of our throws, there were 30 of them, and that's quite a bit. So I want to see more of the downfield passing game. I'm not just talking about the, air it out, kind of like we did to Pearsall, but underthrew him or had a pretty good shot to Burke earlier in the game. What I'm really thinking about is things in the intermediary, working on things such as the 0-1 step drop passing game that I've talked about, where you can run quick slants, quick hitches, things like that we really haven't had. And it showed against Utah. It hurt against Utah. Things that can punish you for putting 8-9 men in the box. And we so far have not punished it against a team like McNeese State that isn't that great. It's a good time to work on that. Like I said, we want to work on the run game. Definitely get guys like Jake Slaughter, who's our backup center, who's been starting as Kingsley's been out, getting him reps, getting him used to his teammates on the line in case Kingsley is out even further, and get him that run game. But also, like I've said for episodes and episodes, now, that quick passing game is a good complement to the run game, and it doesn't just have to be screen. So hopefully we can work on those complementary things together as we move forward and getting some of our younger, more talented, or younger and at least more dynamic guys a little bit of touches, such as, again, Wilson, Gene, Mizell, and even tight end Arliss Boardingham, who's coming off an injury. Hopefully he gets a little bit more, a little bit more of his touches coming up this week. On defense, I want to see some pressure of the quarterback. We had a little bit of pressure last week, but one thing that we did not have is a sack. So I definitely want to see more of the quarterback sacks. Last week, Tarleton State had 7 sacks against McNeese. No reason that we can't at least match that production, even when we go down the depth chart. Get our guys the snaps that will get them experience, that will get them, just more of their mindset of the college game as a whole. Yes, it's not some of the meat of our schedule, but again, as we talked about in the preseason, games like this are a good stepping stone for them in case they're asked to fill in some time against your Tennessees, your Kentuckys, Georgias, and that whole back of the schedule that we've talked about being a very, very difficult 5-game stretch with your Georgia, Arkansas, LSU, Mizzou, and FSU game. And then another thing on defense, I want to see a solidify our fundamentals. We did a pretty good job of this, and we're talking about things like if we're playing outside leverage, at corners, funneling them in, safeties, making sure you stay with the deepest man, let no one behind you, gap integrity, which is make sure if, for linebackers, for defensive line, which is if you've got a gap you're protecting, whether it's maintaining the edge on the outside or if it's, hey, I'm responsible for, the A gap, B gap, whatever it is for the defense, that's the hole you're filling, and don't overcommit and leave potentially an open lane for a running back or even a quarterback. McNeese State's quarterback, he is a little bit of a dual threat. Last week, and I'll get the numbers pulled up for you, Nate Glantz is their quarterback. He didn't throw too well. He was 15 of 35 for 166. However, he did, even with the 7 sacks, he did have 18 carries for 34 yards, including a long of 17 and 2 touchdowns. So you figure with him being sacked 6-7 times, they did put in another quarterback. I didn't count how many times each, but I'd imagine at least 5 or 6 of them were on Glantz. Glantz having 34 yards, probably a lot more if you take away the sack yardage. That's pretty good. Obviously, I don't expect him to do that against us, but just something that brings a new dynamic, something that can help us, at least practice towards the more athletic quarterbacks that we may face, like a Spencer Rattler, like a Joe Milton, just guys like that. And again, I've said this quite a bit. These games are great for getting young guys reps, and especially getting young guys that may not play and get redshirted. These games are games that could be crucial for their development. They have 4 games a year without having to worry about burning their red shirt. These are the games we need to get up early and get those guys in. Although I do want to see the offensive line, get more reps since they did poorly against Utah. And we have a big test in Tennessee coming in next week, who, despite having a bad secondary last year, were very good against the run. So I think, and they need to solidify young guys like Jake Slaughter, but then we also have other young guys across the line that will need to get experience as well. So when they come in, either as, backups, or God forbid there's another injury, they've got some experience as well. Also, young guys on the defense, if nothing else, to come in, get that experience, get used to the speed of the college game. We can always say, well, they're practicing a speed of the college game. Yeah, it's one thing to practice against your own team. It's another when it's competitive. So get up early, get the young guys reps. Overall, I do think this game is a game where the only thing you can learn is if something isn't good. I mean, obviously, seeing some of the procedural issues being solved, like not having 8 guys on a field goal unit, or, field goal defense unit, or not having 2 guys wearing the same number on a punt return unit. Obviously, those things can be good, but there's nothing good that's going to be shown about our team. We could put up, 70 points. Well, I remember when we put up 65 on Eastern Kentucky in 2014, and there were people saying, oh, maybe we should rescind Muschamp's firing. Well, no, not at all. The thing with that is, in 2014, we played a bad team. This McNeese State is a bad team. So the only way I can say we've learned something about this team, I can't really say, hey, it's good, except for, the procedural issues. But however, this is like a 28-21 game, well, then that's, a way we can learn something isn't good. But I do expect this to be a nice, fun opener in the Swamp. My prediction is the Gators win 52-3. Some people may expect a shutout. I've learned as a Florida fan, don't expect a shutout, and maybe we'll get one. If I expect the shutout, then we're going to do something silly like a random fumble, or something's going to happen, like maybe they onside kick on the first play. I think someone did that to us years ago. Some small team recovered it and ended up getting a field goal out of it. There are just all sorts of weird things that could happen. So I'm going to say 3, but I think our defense, with its improvement, has the capability of getting shut out, or maybe we give up points when we have our backups in. I do think the Gators need to put up at least 50. I think we could put up more. However, I don't know if how slow our offense moves, and the fact we will probably work on the run game, which will kill lots of clock, will give us time to really shoot up as far as the number of points. Last week, Tarleton did have a pick 6 on McNeese State. Maybe we see one of those, and that could definitely help us out in the point scored opportunity. And who knows, we could maybe get some points or some quick drives by getting a fumble off a sack or something, giving us a short field. Definitely something to keep an eye on. I do think this, again, should be a nice, easy night at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, who's, we're debuting. It looks like, according to social media, that we will see the LED lights debuting. So that'll be something cool. Also, one more thing is the Gators are asking, if you're going to the game, to wear white. Actually, if I can fit into this old shirt I recently got from, I believe it's 1998. I've got this old retro 98 shirt that is really cool. I'll try and take a picture of it if I can fit in it. Lots of fun, and it's definitely a dated reference, but I love it. So that's why I'm not going to spoil it for now. But definitely wear white if you go to the game. If I had to put an over-under, I think we'll maybe see 60% in white, be part of that 60% Of course, coming up against Tennessee, wear blue, and the Gators have what they want you to wear throughout the season. Do what you want. I just try and go if the team's asking me to do something with doing that thing. With that said, it is storm season. I do want to give a shout out to my friends at Alvarez Lawn Company. If you're in the Central Florida area, give my friends at Alvarez Lawn Company a call or text for a free quote to 407-490-2617. Once again, you can contact them at 407-490-2617. Alvarez Lawn Company, building plans that work for you. Also, as I said earlier, a nice guy at Gator Chatter did look up some interesting stats, such as 30 of our passes being thrown at 4 yards or less. And those were attempts, not just completions. So definitely something that you can find over at our friends at Gator Chatter. I do write previews, reviews of games as well. Sometimes there's different information here and there, whether that's just things that look better in print or whether it's just things I realize after I write up that I put in here and there's additional here. Who knows? But again, message boards, I know some people say, well, what is it? Message boards for me are basically an organized Twitter. I've said this before, and that's because you got your topic. Boom, press conference. Boom, game thread, things like that. Check them out. GatorChatter.com, your Florida Gators sports bar. And with that said, I know it's been a little bit shorter of an episode. Again, I don't have too much going into it. I'm sure we may have a lot more coming out of it. Some good, hopefully none bad, but definitely for me, I believe it'll be a fun night in the swamp. So with that said, thank you all for listening. And as always, go Gators.